What is up, my nerd friends? We're gonna put this into this. Thanks for tuning in once again. Quicrun Fusion 2-in-1 combo. Gonna go into my trusty, very clapped out Traxxas TRX4, or this truck rather, had an Axe 550 in it before. That fit in there, and since the Fusion is a little bit shorter, should have no problems getting in there. I've already kind of pulled my Axe setup out of there to save a little bit of time, but this is the motor that was in there, and then this is what we're going to install. This is a 550 motor, obviously, so faster. It's a 2700 kV as well. Axe speed control itself has the Bluetooth built into it, whereas the Fusion is a 540 size motor. This is 1800 kV, and then the speed controls in the end doesn't have the Bluetooth built in, but for the most part, all the same technology. The F.O.C. super awesome sensor tech that is specific to these Hobbywing setups, and comes in at an awesome price point. So we'll get to it. This truck comes with an 11-tooth pinion gear that I was able to find in my box of parts. Surprised me. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And then Traxxas does the motor plate with the letters on it that moves the motor closer or farther away. So it's going to have to move one step closer. So I think I got to go down a set of holes. And luckily, the wrench marks are all still there. So it doesn't matter. Your Traxxas instruction manual will explain all this much better. But there's, instead of a motor slot setup like is in a normal go-fast car, Traxxas does these predetermined gear mesh locations, which is probably pretty good because then you don't have to worry about setting your gear mesh. It's kind of cool. I'm going to pick a location so the wires kind of stick up. We're going to go about like that. And be that hole in that hole. Pretty sure these are still the stock screws. They're a little bit longer than they probably need to be. If I had, but they don't seem to cause any problems. But if you have shorter screws, that's okay too. I think these are the motor screws that came with the truck. There's rust in them, so that's usually a good sign. This poor truck. So pinion gear. So I want to line up the pinion gear correctly. I'm gonna put this in. And then just get a basic location going so that you don't have the pinion gear too far this way or this way, and you get all of it onto the spur. So it looks like just a little bit of motor shaft is going to be poking out. And then Traxxas gear cover. This thing goes like this. Battery plug, obviously, on-off switch, and then this guy's going to go into the throttle channel on the receiver. And I'm going to poke this into the little servo wire retainers so that I get nice clean wires everywhere, because that's pretty cool. So there's a couple things that are different about my TRX4 than your TRX4 out of the package. I took the battery tray out because we had started using small size 1300 and 1800 milliamp packs up in the front here to get all that weight forward. So normally your battery tray is here, and then you have that all holds the wires in there. So because my speed control was over here, I had some wires that ran across. I cut some zip ties and put them into the screw locations to act as wire cozies to keep the wires from flopping around. I don't like floppy wires. This is a nightmare of a time in here. I got one blown up servo, so that's unplugged. I just haven't got around to replacing it yet. But the throttle channel on your Traxxas receiver is going to be the third one up, which is actually channel number 2, because there's 2 channel number 1s for dual servo setups. Even my little fingers can't get in there. Come on! These have 3 color wires. If you have a black harness, they're marked on the edge of here in case you have these don't have colors. If you plug this stuff into your Traxxas receiver backwards, it'll take out the channel that you plug it in backwards. So don't do that. And don't plug it into the other slots that are on there too, because that's all bad. Don't ask me how I know. It's because I did it once and it smoked the receiver. 3-cell LiPo pack, fully charged, plugged in to the Fusion. And to do the calibration process, I'm going to put the controller right here. This is throttle, that's brakes. But see if I can make sure that the button gets shown and I do this all in one shot. You're gonna push it down, hold it while you're pushing it, it'll start to blink, let go, and then we'll go through the process. So this is the basic calibration of a Fusion. Starts to blink like that, you let go. Tap it once, full throttle. Tap it again, full reverse. tap it a third time, and that's it. Calibration's done. It goes through those beepings to let you know what's happening. 1 beep, 2 beeps, 3 beeps as you go along the process. All that racket in the beginning was the servos doing their thing and the shifting and all that. And then after that, you should get basic operation. So give it throttle, give it reverse. Now you've got it calibrated, you're going to make at least one crucial setting change, and the programming for this is very straightforward. Box is included like we've mentioned. You're going to take this little protector out of the end of the plug, because that keeps the schmutz out of there, keeps it kind of sealed up, and you're going to plug in your programming box's harness. It does matter where it plugs in on the top. The right-hand side one, there's a squiggly little shape that gets the white wire, and on the plug, it's also marked here on the end, negative, positive, and S for the white wire for signal. So plug that guy in, turn this on, you're going to hear some racket going on back here, and then you get your values. So on the front of the box, it explains the settings, but it doesn't tell you what you do. That's in the instruction manual, but we can run through all that right now. Value number one, or item number one, I'm sorry, is throttle matching, RPM/throttle matching. And this is what kind of makes an FOC an FOC. So you want to kind of leave that enabled unless you like the motor to stall when you run up to an obstacle. A lot of times brush motor style is what I call it. So if you turn that off, it'll stall when you run into stuff. But if you want to make it, like it's supposed to be, you leave that enabled. Second value is LiPo cells. It'll auto-calculate. So in case you run 2 and 3 cell, it'll pick between the two of them. It's fine if you only ever plugged in fully charged batteries, but you got to be careful if you're plugging in half-charged stuff, things like that. It can trick with it. So if you're always going to run 3 cell, you might as well change that to 3 cell all the time. Doesn't make a huge difference. Your voltage, or your cutoff voltage, your voltage cutoff is what I call it. You got disabled, low, intermediate, and high. So disabled obviously turns off the LiPo protection completely. Low is the lowest voltage, intermediate is a medium voltage, and high is the highest voltage. Safest, least amount of runtime is what high is. So often we get asked what those numbers are because people read the instructions and it says don't get your batteries below a certain voltage. I appreciate that. The problem is, depending on the plugs, the condition of the battery packs, how hard it gets discharged, those numbers can vary a whole bunch. So we go with basic stuff here, but low is going to be like 3.2-ish range per cell. Intermediate is going to probably be like 3.4, 3.5-ish per cell, and high will be above 3.7, so super safe. Don't quote me on that, because like I said, it changes depending on the plugs and the condition of the battery. Thermal protection, everybody knows what that is. If something overheats, this stops that from doing any damage, so it'll shut it off. You have 2 values, kind of a low, a high, and then a disabled. They actually put real numbers on there that you will never be able to know if it's true or false, and those are internal numbers. So that could have been low and high as well, but we gave you some numbers to imagine you were doing. And then, oh, I forgot to push the button. So that's number 4. It defaults on, obviously, and on the low, safest setting. Number 5 is the one that we're going to need to change. Because the motor goes the wrong direction for a rock crawl style or backwards transmission vehicle, it defaults to counterclockwise. So we got to change that. So you hit value to change it, and then you hit OK to save. And that'll make sure that now forward is forward, reverse is reverse. Easy stuff. I'm not sure why it doesn't just default to counterclockwise, other than there's still a handful of cars out there that use normal direction transmissions. So I lost the vote on that one. Sorry, guys, I tried. Item number 6 is your BEC voltage, and that's the power output to the receiver and the servo. That's what the BEC does. This does have a switching BEC in there, rated at 4 amps, just like the Axe is. And those ratings on amperage are kind of all over the board, so don't sweat that. It works a high-powered servo. This has the Traxxas aftermarket servo in there, and it has all the shift servos and stuff like that. Well, that one's busted, as we talked about. And drag brake is number 7. So anyway, number 6, if you have high voltage servos or you want that little extra speed and power, you can bump that up. Even on my high voltage servos, I run them on 6 volts because they just run a little cooler, last a little longer type of thing. So, but number 7, drag brake force. This is the strength of your drag brakes, how hard you stop the truck. So the higher this is, the more aggressive the stop's going to be. In the middle of the road, number 5 is usually pretty good. Higher is stronger, lower is weaker. If you're more into high-speed driving and not parking on angles, you can lower that. If you're going to do a lot of extreme climbing, usually 5, or a lot of angle parking, if you will, and 5 is still more than enough. So you don't need to go much more than that, but you can. The next one, number 8, is your drag brake rate. Now, this one I really like to play with a little bit. The Axe has an auto mode. This does not have an auto mode. That's one of the other differences. But if you want to have your drag brake speed change. Like, think of this is the pedal. You're pushing on the pedal. Drag brake increase rate high, you smash on the pedal. Drag brake increase low as you gently apply the pedal. So you can go from 1 to 9 on this. Obviously 9 being very aggressive. Almost as soon as you let off, it's going to snap the brakes on. And level 1 is going to slowly apply the brakes. So if you are doing more high-speed driving than low-speed driving, drag brake rate going lower is a good thing. And for me, I tend to do more high speed than low speed, so I like to lower this a little bit. It helps it not do nose wheelies and stuff like that. So I'm going to change that to a little bit lower and go down to, I'm going to go down to number 2, hit OK to save, and that lowers my drag brake rate. And final item, number 9, is your reverse force. Very easy. It's how fast the reverse is. Some people like to run a little bit lower speed reverse, so that's an option. But for the most part, 100% reverse is where it's at. The Fusion, if you lose this card, it'll work with any other of the LED cards, the ones with the red numbers, the 4 buttons. The problem is the sticker won't match, so keep your instruction manual around, because the instruction manual has these same settings listed, and you can reference those in case you have to use a different card. You turn it off. Of course, unplug it, and don't forget to put your little seal guy back in there so that you protect your switch. So I'm going to use some double-side tape, mount this guy here. We're going to close all this box up, and then she'll be ready for the trail action. You won't get to see all that. I have one bearing I got to change, and we can take this thing out on trail and bash on it. But that's basically it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Quick look at a Fusion install into the Traxxas TRX4. Thanks a lot.